So Robby, what's on your radar?
Well, Angeli Gomez is the mother of 2 kids who attend school at Robb Elementary in Uvalde, Texas. Now, on the day of the horrific mass shooting, which claimed the lives of 19 children and 2 adults, Gomez's kids both had graduation ceremonies. Gomez is a farm worker. She attended the ceremonies, she hugged her kids, and then she went back to her job. Shortly thereafter, she learned that an armed gunman, who we now know to be 18-year-old Salvador Ramos, was attacking the school. So she drove back 100 miles per hour, returned to the school. Here's what she told CBS News in an interview that aired over this weekend.
U.S. Marshals started coming toward my car saying that I wasn't allowed to be parked there. And he said, well, we're going to have to arrest you because you're being very uncooperative. I said, well, you're going to have to arrest me because I'm going in there, and I'm telling you right now, I don't see none of y'all in there. Y'all are standing with snipers, and y'all are far away. If y'all don't go in there, I'm going in there. He immediately put me in cuffs.
She says after Uvalde police officers told marshals to uncuff Gomez, she ran towards the school.
As soon as they uncuffed me, I jumped that first gate fence. And once I jumped it, I went to my son's class, and I knocked on the door, and I remember the teacher saying, I'm like, hey, they're already bulge cutting the fence to get me. She's like, you think we have time to get out? I said, y'all have time. I'm going to run for my other son.
Once she was assured her son was okay, Gomez ran to get her other child, encountering more officers who tried to stop her.
So I start yelling, and I'm being cooperative, and I'm like, well, y'all aren't doing what are y'all doing? Y'all ain't doing y'all need to be in here. Give me your vest. Somebody give me a vest, something. I started paying attention to how far the shots were being, so that I knew the shooter was all the way still by my first son's class. So when I went to my second son's door, the teacher didn't want to open the door for me. So that's when they started escorting me out. And as I see that they're opening my son's door, I go run for my son, and I get him.
A mother, a farm worker, no training in combat scenarios, no body armor, not even in possession of a weapon herself, she nevertheless entered the school to do what needed to be done, rescue her children. And she was able to do that, thank goodness. Meanwhile, the Uvalde police were waiting, and waiting, and waiting. In fact, they waited for more than an hour to confront the shooter, who was inside a classroom with kids, some of whom were still alive, frantically calling 911, begging law enforcement to do something to save them, save their wounded and dying classmates. According to Gomez, the police spent more effort restraining parents who wanted to go in and kill the shooter than doing anything about the shooter themselves.
I don't need you to protect me. Get away from me. I don't need your protection. If anything, I need you to go in there with me to go protect my kids. And if anything, they were being more aggressive on us. They were more pertained on keeping us back than getting into that school.
Ultimately, 19 officers gathered outside the classroom that contained the shooter. They were led by Peter Arredondo, chief of the Uvalde School District's police department. All police training pertaining to the shooting, to school shootings, requires that police immediately rush the shooter, no matter how outgunned they are. But Arredondo wanted to wait for more backup, which goes against everything that both the police and the public have learned about mass shooter scenarios ever since Columbine in 1999. You don't wait, you go in. Arredondo is no longer cooperating with the investigation into his actions. Not surprising there. And now there was one other incredible detail from Gomez's interview with CBS. Watch this.
You know, she's on probation for some charges from about a decade ago, and that she received a call from someone in law enforcement telling her that if she keeps talking to media, or if she, keeps sharing her story, that she might face some kind of violation for obstruction of justice. So she was holding back from sharing her story until now because a judge told her that she was brave and that her probation would be shortened. So that gave her the courage to talk to us. Her uncle's the one who called me and said, you have to hear her story, and I'm so glad he did.
So not only did the police fail to do anything meaningful to stop the shooter, for more than an hour, not only did they obstruct, handcuff, and arrest parents who understandably tried to take matters into their own hands, they also tried to cover their tracks by attempting to intimidate this mother into silence. There is a war on parents in this country. In previous radars, I've spoken frequently about our out-of-touch education system, about school boards that ignore the needs of frustrated parents and families, that kept schools closed and then kept young kids masked far beyond what was reasonable during the pandemic. Now, these school boards frequently refuse to explain controversial curriculum and policy changes, and they lash out at parents who ask questions at their meetings. So many conservatives have been rightly critical of this behavior when it comes to public school teachers, activists, educators, and school boards. But some on the right have a soft spot for law enforcement, let's be clear about that. And they tend to overlook the fact that the police are often just as unresponsive to the needs of the people, if not more unresponsive. There's no more gut-wrenching example than Uvalde. Like the education system, our policing system needs fundamental reform. What happened at Robb Elementary is one of the greatest failings of a local public institution in our history. And there must be justice for all those lives lost. So this is really a message I have to conservatives who, again, I agree with. I have also been critical of a lot of the schooling decisions made, a lot of the, and there's been a war on parents kind of framing of how that is. The out of touch local officials not providing families what they needed during the pandemic. I agree with that, but we need to, that skepticism of public institutions they need to bring that out a step further and include a police who behaved this abominably, who tried to arrest this woman. And look, I get that they didn't want all the parents to rush in. That's fine if they had a plan to do that. But the impulse to rush in is the correct one. It's what all the training suggests. It's what they trained for at this school 2 months ago.
Yeah.
All of the training says you can't negotiate with these types of people. You just rush in and that's what you're supposed to do. And they waited and waited and waited while people were dying.
The Border Patrol team says they were baffled. They were baffled. The Border Patrol team said we are baffled trying to figure out why they have us waiting. We are baffled as to why they're not doing anything. They were there. They arrived. The Border Patrol team arrived at 12 o'clock, between 12 o'clock and 12:10 p.m. with shields, tactical shields, ready to go in. And they said the police would not let them. So for an hour of pleading with them, they just decided, you know what, I'm going to override it and I'm going to go in and I'm going to go save whoever's left.
Yeah, thank God. Thank God. But this is such a clear, more people could have lived.
Yes.
I know we can say that now.
Absolutely.
There's enough information.
Absolutely.
They conceivably, if they'd gone in fast, I guess conceivably they could have even taken longer if the Border Patrol had not said to hell with this, we're going in. So it is such a so just to, we already know this, but just to hear more confirmation from these parents, I can't imagine if you were a parent of a kid who had, obviously, if you were a kid who died in this, you're going to be outraged and furious and sad, and I don't know how your life can even go on. It's so horrible. But imagining that it could have been differently if the police had done what they are absolutely, unquestionably trained to do.
The reports say they received the children and the teachers that were hiding in the classroom called the police at least 6 times to come inside, and they wouldn't. And the little girl who made the call, who did not live, Maya, dad was outside, and they went to arrest the father. God. Yeah, it is, as someone who is extremely critical of the police, I spend my every day trying to explain to the police. I was shocked. I could not believe it was this bad. I'm like, no way. I wrote an op-ed for Teen Vogue, and even going into that about this, I'm like, there's absolutely no way when I put this, no way. There's no way that this is.
This story has no bottom. It gets
worse every time you realize it. The Border Patrol team says not only were they baffled as to why they wouldn't let them in, they said they also were baffled as to where the local SWAT team is, because they have one. They have a police department. They have their own.
Probably had a marijuana bust to take care of or something.
Something like that. They said over 20 different law enforcement agencies responded, and the police at the Uvalde would not let them go in. Would not let them.
The school resource officer wasn't there. Drove past the shooter and confronted a random teacher.
That is the insanest thing I've ever heard. The fact that they said there was a 911 call at 11:30 a.m. At 11:31, he drives past the shooter.
I know.
I'm just like, why would you even tell us? It's absolutely insane. I knew it was bad when I saw mainstream media have to say, oh, they lied, oh, they changed their story.
Yeah.
The fact that you can find mainstream media having to say, hey, the police's story changed 12 times. There are major discrepancies. You go from originally, we confronted the shooter, to we didn't confront the shooter, we drove by him. That it is insane. And the fact they tased parents, there were parents that were pinned to the ground, arrested, tased, pepper sprayed. They spent more energy policing these terrified parents than they did the actual shooter in the school. They had their backs to the school while they policed the parents. It's absurd. It is. Like I said, I think it is the clearest demonstration we've seen of police ineptitude, failure, and just callous disregard for lives. It's insane. They let a 4th grade class be slaughtered, and it didn't have to happen.
That's absolutely terrible. Well, we'll keep delivering unfortunately, the new updates that keep coming in about how even worse this was than you can possibly imagine. But we'll have more Rising right after this.